Are you saving enough? Are you spending enough? Will you have enough in retirement? And how do you know? Well, in this video, I am going to teach you exactly how to answer those questions and to calculate your savings rate. So if you're interested in learning how to do this very simple math and ensure that you'll be financially secure in the future and enjoying your life now, then stay tuned. Hello again and welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. Brittany Helford, and on this channel, we focus on having more joy and more wealth today in your life. I am your internal medicine physician and your wealth coach for the next 5 to 10 minutes. But I'm hoping that you'll subscribe to my channel and we can continue to learn and journey together towards wealth. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to save more or how to spend more and how to figure out what you're supposed to do along that spectrum. The first step in really understanding where you need to move, where you fall on that spectrum, is to understand your savings rate. And how do you calculate your savings rate? I've seen a few calculators, a few equations, but the one that I like most is to think about how much money are you taking home every single paycheck. And once you can think about what is my take-home pay, then the next question is to ask yourself, how much of the money that I'm taking home am I actually saving for retirement? Dividing the number that you take home into the number that you're saving for retirement, that will give you your savings rate. All right, the math sounds simple, but let me break it down for you. So when we talk about your take-home pay, this is the amount of money that arrives in your bank account. But it's not oftentimes the only source of income that we have, especially if we're health professionals and we've been investing independently. There might be some additional income, such as dividend income or real estate income, that actually may arrive in your bank account as well. And when you're calculating your savings rate and your take-home pay, there are other things that you're not necessarily taking home that are included in that number. So an example of that would be your 401k. If you're maxing out the contributions or any contributions that you put into the 401k, you also want to include that in the denominator when calculating your savings rate. So if you have any healthcare savings account contributions, any flexible spending account contributions, if you have any dependent care flexible spending accounts, so not only like a healthcare savings account, but dependent care savings account. If you have any 457B contributions, all of those above the line deductions need to be added into this denominator as far as your take-home pay. So when you're thinking about what is your take-home pay or your net income, you want that to be inclusive of all sources of income minus the taxes. And then you have to think about, okay, how much am I actually saving? And if you're saving for a vacation, if you're saving for a new purse, then I'm sorry. That money is not included in the numerator because it's not going towards retirement, right? And we want to be able to live today while predicting and securing our future for tomorrow. So you really want to focus in on the money that you have earmarked for retirement alone. And once you can define those numbers and enumerate them, then you can divide that net income into what you're saving for retirement and determine your annual savings rate. Now, it's really important that you determine your annual savings rate and do it frequently because we have changes in income, right? We have changes in the amount that we're putting away each year. And so we want to make sure that we have an overall perspective on how that's changing from year to year and how we can keep it consistent so that we can achieve this goal. After you've determined your current savings rate, then I want you to take a moment and reflect upon how life feels for you. Are you someone who just feels like overwhelmed, that you are penny pinching and you're not having enough joy? Then it could be that you're saving too much and you need to spend a little bit more so that you can increase the fulfillment in your life. Or maybe you need to examine some of the other things, some of the environmental factors to understand what really brings you joy so that you can increase and augment that to have more fulfillment. Because honestly, just because you spend more money doesn't equate to having more joy. And oftentimes you can have joy that is very inexpensive and still make you feel fulfilled. So I don't want you to equate spending with having more joy, but sometimes we are penny pinching. Sometimes, we're wearing tattered clothes and there is an opportunity to spend a bit more so that we can have more experiences. So you just have to figure out where on that spectrum you fall. Because remember, there's always another dollar to save or there's always another dollar to spend, and you have to determine what is enough for you. So now you know your current savings rate, and now you know how you feel about your money, that, oh, you're having a good time, you can keep this going and be consistent with this for 3 additional decades. Or you're like, okay, I don't want to live this life and this existence the way that it is now, and so I need to make a change, whether that's spending a little bit more, whether that's seeking some professional help. Whatever it is, you have to figure that out so that you can make these changes and be consistent with them. Because if it's drudgery, you're not going to want to do it. Right? And what type of existence is that to live? So once you've determined your enough, your joy benchmark, and achieve that with consistency, and you understand your current savings rate, then you have to think about, what are going to be my expenses in retirement? How much does it actually take for me to live this joyful existence? And this requires you to reflect and track and calculate your expenses, because historically it has been predicted that you would spend about 70 to 80% of your current expenses in retirement. We don't know what's going to happen 10, 20, 30 years into the future, so we can only base the numbers on the information that we have today. But if you don't know how much your expenses are, how can you do this math? You can't. So I want you to sit down with your credit card statements, with your debit card statements, and really start to formulate and conceptualize and calculate what your current expenses are. And you want to include all of those fixed expenses and the variable expenses. And it would be really, really nice if you can create two lists, because the expenses that you're going to have the most control over are those variable expenses. Now, there are some fixed expenses that you can negotiate to lower if needed, but usually the variable expenses are based upon our use. And so therefore, if you just modify a few behaviors, then you would be able to reduce those variable expenses. Now, once you understand your joy, your current savings rate, and how much you might need in retirement, then I want you to think about, how many years do I have until I retire? I don't know about you, but I don't want to work until I'm 67 or 65 or 60 for that matter. Now, I'm not so aggressive where it's like I'm part of the physician FIRE movement when I want to save every single penny in order to retire at the age of 40, but I also know that I don't want to work into my 60s. So determining how long you have to accumulate this amount of money that you need for your retirement would help you to know how you need to modify your savings rate. If you have 30 years, then that means you have many more earning years to contribute to this accumulation phase of your life, and therefore you will likely have to save a bit less. But if you want to retire in 10 years, then it might mean that you need to save 40 to 50% of your income, depending on how much it will require for you to live. There are some really good calculators and graphs of math that have already been done. And one is by Mr. Money Mustache, and I've included it right here. But you can see that as your savings rate increases, the years in which are required for you to work and accumulate that amount needed for retirement decreases, right? So there's an inverse relationship here. It's important for you to take a look at this chart and use it as a reference. Where do you fall? Based upon your current savings rate, say you're saving at a 14% rate. You can retire maybe in 40 years, right? But if you don't want to work for 40 years, then maybe work backwards. Begin with the end in mind, in which you look at the date, how many years until you retire, you want to retire, and figure out where that savings rate needs to be. Now, the chart created by Mr. Money Mustache assumes a couple of things. That your investments are going to earn an interest that's going to be at least 5% plus inflation. So if inflation is 2% every year, then it would return about 7% every year. And it also has the assumption that you would withdraw about 4% of that growth every single year. And you might ask, why 4%? This 4% rule was based upon the Trinity study, in which it evaluated when someone had investments and they took distributions of 4% every year, then they would have money that would last them until perpetuity. Now, I don't know how long you're living. Right here in the sea, we're gonna live to about 95, and ideally with all of our faculties. So the money that I have invested will need to last for that period of time and to support that lifestyle without any increase of lifestyle. So if you want to know how much you actually need in retirement, like that dollar amount, take your current expenses, divide them by 4%, and that will give you the amount that you need to have invested in order to retire. So I hope that you understand your savings rate is the most essential, critical part of determining when you can retire. Because if you can save 100% of your income, you can probably retire now if you can maintain that lifestyle in which you're not using any of the money to live. Now, I don't know where you're living and what you're doing, but you could potentially retire now. And if you're saving 0%, then you will likely never be able to retire. So it's imperative that you understand where you are, understand what type of existence you want, how this feels for you now, and understand how much money you're gonna need in retirement and how many years until retirement. And then using all those numbers and this graph to figure out, you know, each of us wants something differently. So this determination is going to be really, really individualized for you. And if you feel like you don't know how you're going to get to that benchmark, then let me provide you with a few ideas. It is far more impactful to decrease your expenses and try to increase your income, because this will require much less to sustain that decrease in expenses. So evaluate your expenses and base them upon joy. If those expenses are not giving you joy, eliminate them. And the fewer expenses you have, the more money you can save, and you can increase that savings rate. Another option would be to increase your income. Look for passive income sources, active income sources, and really modify that. Either way you go, that will help you to increase your savings rate. You just want to make sure that you can reliably save this amount on a consistent basis for that duration of time so that you can retire when you desire. All right, well, I hope that this video was really helpful for you to understand where you are and where you need to go. They would say typically that most physicians need to save about 20% of their income. But for you, maybe you want to retire early, and so you want to boost that up a bit. Or you never want to retire, so you want to decrease that. Wherever you fall is fine. You just want to make sure that you have enough joy today and can secure your future. So if you've enjoyed this video, then I want you to hit the subscribe button and share it with another woman in healthcare, because sharing is caring and money is taboo, and this is a question that I get asked all the time. So we need to spread the word and share the knowledge. So I thank you in advance for doing that. If you have any questions about your savings rate, anything that came up with the math, then just leave it below and I am happy to answer. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.